Hi everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mr. Lucas Southerton, and I'm a teacher at Mifflinburg Middle School. Today I want to talk about gender and gender identity. Just as a disclaimer though, I'm speaking on my own behalf, on my own time, and not within my official capacity as an employee of the district or the state. That said, although I do have my own beliefs on the issue, which I might share at a later date if appropriate, in this video, in the spirit of public education, I'm going to try to present a variety of perspectives in an unbiased manner and in such a way that I think will best serve our children and our community. When presenting these different perspectives, I hope to do them justice, but please know that I'm not an expert and I'm just scratching the surface and trying to create a path toward further dialogue and understanding. I think before I share the different perspectives though, we all need to pause and acknowledge that the topic of gender and gender identity is not just a subject of intellectual debate. It's a subject that affects all of us. We're gendered beings, male and female, or perhaps, as we'll discuss later, it might not be that simple. And of course, for those who identify as transgender or non-binary, this is a topic that deeply affects them. And these people are in our schools, in my classroom, and I truly believe that this conversation needs to be had, but with the utmost sensitivity and respect for our shared humanity. I'm going to create two bubbles that represent different ways of thinking about gender. This bubble represents people who believe that your gender and your sex are basically the same thing. That when you were born, somebody looked at your genitals and said, it's a boy, or it's a girl. Or on rare occasion, we're not sure, because there are situations where the chromosomes order differently which make it unclear. But the point is, the people in this bubble believe that there is an objective reality to what we are that is typically visible through our bodies that needs to be accepted and affirmed even if it's uncomfortable, if we're truly going to honor ourselves and one another. Or, as some people see it, to honor a God who made us that way for our own good because he loves us. By the way, studying and discussing religion is sometimes necessary to really understand another person or culture, and has its place in the correct context, even in public schools. Back to the discussion on gender. This other bubble represents people who think that sex and gender are different, and that gender is a complicated social construct based on roles, behaviors, and expressions. There are people in our schools who for a long time, perhaps for as long as they remember, have experienced intense discomfort with the gender, think roles, behaviors, and expressions, assigned to them at birth, and who identify very strongly with a different gender, or perhaps with both or neither. These feelings are subjective, but they're also real. The people in this bubble believe that people should be free to be or to identify as transgender or non-binary or a different term in order to honor their sense of self, and as some people see it, to honor a God who loves and affirms each person for who they are. I don't want to mislead people into thinking that all the religious people are in one bubble and not in the other. And I also think it's important to say that not everybody's views fit exclusively into one bubble or the other. And that's okay. On behalf of myself, and unofficially I hope on behalf of other teachers, I want to say to everybody on the spectrum that we love you. We see you, we care about you, we're glad you exist, and we're glad you're in our schools and in our community. The world is a richer place because you're in it, and I'm thankful. So how do we move forward in a productive and positive way when we have people with such different beliefs? I'm going to turn this image into a graph. Your x-axis represents beliefs, your y-axis represents behaviors. This side up here represents positive behaviors, this side down here represents negative behaviors. Negative behaviors, of course, would be things like bullying, picking on people, spreading rumors, calling them mean names, trying to silence them, or having an attitude that says, because you believe something different than me, you're less. It's really easy to slip into a spirit of arrogance, and we need to be vigilant against this. It's okay to think you're right, but if you act as though you're better because you're right, you're probably just going to end up hurting people. We need to move forward with humility. And by humility, I mean recognizing that we're human. that we all have a lot to learn and that we make mistakes, but that in spite of our weaknesses and differences, we all have a human dignity and value that deserves to be respected. I think one of the best ways to affirm a person's dignity and value is to acknowledge that they exist, and then get to know them. Say hello, give a smile, ask about their day, be a friend. Admittedly, if we're going to be authentic with one another, differences in beliefs about gender will likely come up, and we have to have the courage and compassion to have these discussions, and perhaps we end up agreeing to disagree, but with the affirmation that comes from knowing and being known by another and being accepted and loved in spite of our differences. This is the kind of people we need to try to become, and I pray for the grace to become it. Thanks for listening.